Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and a very good morning to you all. We are blessed and privileged to be back in Istanbul, obviously. Also happy and honored to be supporting the first AlBaraka Summit. We wish you all the best, and the organizers, obviously, and the sponsors. We have 4 distinguished professors, colleagues, Islamic finance scholars, and as well as consultants. Just a few remarks before we start our session. We have about 75 minutes. We divided this into 2 parts. The first part will be presentation of each of our fellow panelists. And the second part will be a very much kind of Davos-style discussions where we will interact more with the audience, hopefully. And the last part is to open the floor to the audience, and we hope that we will have an interactive and insightful discussions. My first speaker is Professor Ahmed Farouk, who's obviously going to give us his fairest points of view and presentation. Professor Ahmed is a board member. He has been, obviously, a board member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Turkey. He is now Associate Dean for Research and Professor of Islamic Finance at Hamad bin Khalifa University, College of Islamic Studies in Qatar, Doha. Obviously, the first paper is going to be about a millennium of Islamic economics, traversing comprehensive historical experience. So, without further ado, can I ask you to go to the podium, please?
Shall I go to the podium, or I should?
I think so, or if you wanted to.
Where's the pointer? Probably I can check the slides from here. I don't have to go, I guess. Are we going to have the slides? Okay, let's see. It will come, I guess. So, first of all, thank you very much for the very kind invitation to AlBaraka Forum, to all the co-organizers. It is a great event, and it has been a while that we haven't had a really big Islamic finance event over the years. I remember back in 2015, when Turkey was having the G20 presidency, we organized some Islamic finance events, and our idea was to put the Islamic finance into the agenda of G20, such that Islamic finance will be one of the mainstream discussion points, because we all know that Islamic finance is not necessarily accepted by all the conventional economists and finance people. So that was our idea. If we put it under G20, so it will be more mainstream. Alhamdulillah, Islamic finance has been improving over the last 40, 50 years. This is going to be one of the main points of my talk. Islamic finance has been with us from the very early on, and even I have a claim that there was an Islamic finance before Islam. But especially in the last 50 years, Islamic finance came out, Islamic finance and economy came up, and inshallah, when we have the slides, I will try to show that this is one of the biggest achievements of the Muslim world. As compared to the social dimensions, as compared to the political dimensions, probably there is something that we have achieved over the last 50 years. It is for sure the Islamic finance. For about 50 years ago, we don't have even Islamic banks. We have small one in Egypt and so on, but overall, we don't have an established Islamic finance tools right now. It is well-developed institutions. We have this sort of gatherings, and also it's not just about the thought, but it is something implemented. So sometimes as Islamic finance people, we are a bit pessimistic about how the Islamic finance is going through. But at the same time, we should be also seeing our achievements. This is one of the main points that I would like to deliver today. If the slides come, probably you will see in my slides that I would like to first start with some observations. And the biggest observation is that This is the history session. I'm not an historian, but oftentimes we read the history not necessarily to learn about it. It is mostly to construct the future and to even to implement in today. So that's why we are relatively selective in choosing the examples from the history, or we are reconstructing the history over and over. And Turkey is a very good example for that. We had a completely different reading of the history, at least from a more nationalistic discourse or more state discourse about the Ottomans. Now it is changing. Many of the things that we learn in history, it seems to be that it is not necessarily for the history, but to construct the future. So after having this observation, I would like to emphasize that right now our main challenge is not to read the history. Our main challenge is not to kind of reconstruct the tradition. Our main challenge is the future. And the best example for that is the Yuval Harari's book. Remember, first he started with the Homo sapiens and Homo Deus. Right now, even in Turkey, it is one of the bestseller books, right? He started with the history. He is a historian by definition. But later on, probably he has written this Homo sapiens to write about the Homo Deus, which is about the future, how the future will unfold. Even there, as you see, we are reading the history, in a sense, to construct the future. And no wonder probably why we are starting today with a history session, probably to build the future and to understand the present. So probably it is quite reasonable to start with the history in that perspective. But in any case, globally, right now there is a kind of a global anxiety about uncertainties. And these uncertainties makes the life not like business as usual. For example, if we live just after the Second World War, things were relatively simple. There were two centers of the world, like they are competing. They are in a war, but they are in a peace in a sense. And the life was simple. All social sciences, economics, and so on, they are defined with certain ideologies, and it was relatively more or less confusing. But right now, look at what is happening. Even think about the COVID-19. All of a sudden it came, it changed our lives. And then we all of a sudden realized that there are kind of tail risks. There are certain risks which we cannot know. There's an increasing number of unknown type of risk coming out. And right now we are much more concerned that something might came up and then it might change the globe completely. This is also related with the Islamic finance and economy people, because we have to also produce solutions for this dimension as well. That's why we need to be, and you see there is much more emphasis given to future readiness, future foresight. And all this is one way or another depend on how we read the history. And over there, certainly, Islamic finance needs to look at the past, but with an idea in mind that actually it is not about to understand the past, but to build today, and even more important, for the future where the world is right now in need. Because the world is, humanity is kind of in an identity crisis to some extent because of all these uncertainties. Because imagine, even for the labor market, in the past when you work for an established companies, it was pretty much certain about what will happen. But even very established companies are now being challenged by the technological innovations. The biggest companies are not necessarily industrial companies, but right now the OpenAI out of nowhere came up and then is challenging even the very established IT companies, even, for example, Google, right? There is a great challenge. And there is, in the past, we used to be mostly looking at the past, and from there, especially in the Islamic tradition, this is very much so, right? And whenever we start, we look at the past, and from there we construct it today. But right now, what we observe, the younger generation especially, they are more interested about the future than the past, because they probably understand that the past has different interpretation, and sometimes it's not having an immediate use, but for the future. They are concerned about their job market. They are concerned about their families. They are concerned about their future. And they have a longer horizon in life. Probably they are more right in terms of considering the future. That's why my point is that Islamic finance cannot be done as it has been done in the last 50 years. Alhamdulillah, as I mentioned, I mean, Islamic finance is probably the biggest achievement of the Muslim world in the last 50 years. I mean, there are lots of criticism for sure, especially Islamic finance people can be quite critical, but still, the half of the glass is full and half of it empty. So when we look at the full part, actually, it is, as compared to, again, the other dimension, Islamic finance, Islamic economy, it has as a biggest achievement. But right now, our challenge is that Islamic finance came to a plateau in terms of the economic thinking, in terms of even implementation. Right now, there has to be another breakthrough. And this breakthrough will come with the ideas, not necessarily by checking the history, but but it will come with the ideas. So in that sense, I am very happy also to be here in this conference, because I hope this will be one of the milestones about the future thinking in Islamic finance.
Can I just stop you here, brother?
Yes, let me stop here and I will continue.
Since we just wanted to engage our fellow colleagues, I think the theme of the conference is very interesting, fundamentals and the needs. Given that the industry has, especially the Islamic economy and Islamic finance, has now been in proper practice for probably five decades, I think it's a good time just to reflect on this. And if I may bring our colleague, Dr. Shem, just to share some thoughts about what would be the fundamentals of Islamic economy or Islamic economics, and how we can relate this to the issues that we are facing, like climate finance, climate change financing, sustainable development goals, the recurring issues that's really impacting our both political and social agendas. Any particular points that you wanted to address?
Actually, Islamic finance and Islamic economics focus on the firstly human nature, then to respect the nature too. So all the instruments, all the ways, all the methods is related with the respect to the nature and the humanity. So it is the base of the Islamic economy to respect these issues. So sustainability is one of the main concepts of our Islamic finance.
Absolutely. So, of course, nature, that's environment. Obviously, this brings us to the issues of environment, social, and governance, the ESG, the talk of ESG and the frameworks. Can I also ask Professor Mehmet if you can share some 2 points about what would be the key fundamentals for Islamic economics, how Islamic economics can transform through the history, through the current challenges that we have in our economies, and how we can relate this to the points that mentioned by Professor Chem, the nature, human beings, developments, and the likes of SDGs, if you like.
I think okay.
Yes.
So, Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. This is the main question that today, when we look at the global big challenges in the world today, from, we experience a linear economic development in the world for a long time. At least in modern times, the Western-oriented economic development focus on a linear development. But today, when we when we look at the world economy, we have so many crises in real economy and also in financial sectors. So that means from, inside of this paradigm, there are some suggestions, and very recent time, in United Nations level, after 2000, they start to discuss this issue, and they come to the solutions that they suggest a kind of sustainable development goals. And this is really important from inside of the linear perspective from the West. But what we need, as we are discussing today, and the students of Islamic economics and finance, when we look at the theory of this area, we have the Islam suggested a global perspective. First, nature, human, transparency, and all these things are related to the sustainable development, and especially the Islamic social finance institutions are playing key role to realize this kind of development. To reducing poverty, we can use the institutions of zakat, waqf, microfinance, and other institutions. And for empowering, the unequal classes in the world, and for realizing a more equal economy, and to solve some when we look at today in the world, nearby 1 billion people are living in a very difficult conditions, with real poor conditions. And as the Muslim intellectuals, here we first need to a kind of redefine what is the main actor in economy as human being. When we look at the linear paradigm, we have seen that it's homo economicus paradigm based on just self-interest. And the developed countries, Western-oriented countries are also just focused on their self-interest. This is homo economicus paradigms. But from this perspective, the current crisis of the real economy, distribution of wealth and income, the financial crisis, from inside, it is a kind of suggestion. But as a Muslim intellectuals, we can suggest more comprehensive to define again the human being, the main actor in economy. Then our relations with the nature. So, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there is a balance in the nature, the mizan. So today, we destroyed this mizan. And we, as the Muslim intellectuals, we can make some contributions on this area. From, the history of Islamic economic thought on this session, the issue, there are some, suggestions from the Muslims. The Maqasid Sharia perspective to protect, the man, the life, the intellect, the generation, the system, the deen, and yes. So this is, the Maqasid perspective. It can also make huge contribution. In addition to this, there are some modernist approach to a kind of the, within the system, the same system, to make, a connection with Islamic principles. And there are also some different approach, but Islamic, economics and within, this Maqasid perspective, if we can add the ethical principles, Islamic social framework, yes. With the institutions in our history, in our civilization, our background, so we can see that as Muslims, we can, first to main actor, then to institutions. Institutions can play a very critical role in this respect. Islamic social finance institution, we divide the, Islamic economics, as was mentioned before, is today morely focused on Islamic finance. But Islamic economics is more
Bigger.
than Islamic
It's bigger.
finance. And Islamic social finance is, another perspective. Islamic finance focus just on making profit in halal way.
Sure.
And this halal way is critical and important, but Islamic social finance is focused on to make, contribution to the society within, of course, sustainability is critical within this respect.
Sure. This is an interesting point. If I may stop you here, simply because Islamic banking or Islamic finance has taken the lead to develop products and services and help economies in different sectors. I think it is for Islamic economic, it needs a more of a political will, a policy, regulation support to produce maybe more products, more institutions. But I will get back to you, some interesting point, brother. If I could just, before we start our presentations, Professor Yunus, do you have any points to share about how we see Islamic economics, given the challenges that Professor Mohammed was saying, the crisis that we have, and the issues? And essentially, we wanted to make sure that the broad Islamic economics now prevails. And we don't want it to leave this only for Islamic banking and takaful or halal food. The bigger picture of the Islamic economics. Any views?
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. I will begin from where my colleague has stopped. That Islamic economics is not only Islamic banking and finance, it's much broader than that. But we are witnessing a kind of integration between the other sectors, especially between the Islamic banking and halal industry. There are certain markets that have showed positive signs that this integration is taking place. This is a new trend which has to be supported in terms of regulations, policies, products, and not only that, this is another opportunity to show that the internationalization aspect of the Islamic economics. I would like to say also that the new trends of Islamic economics, there are 3 or 4 important trends. One is to move more towards the global stage, where it is now capitalizing on the SDGs, ESG. And this is another level of integration with the global economy, provided we have our own version of SDGs, our own version of ESG, capitalizing more on Maqasid Sharia perspective. And in my presentation, if there is a chance, I'm going to show some good examples of how ESG, SDG, and Maqasid can be integrated in a framework, concept, KPIs, indicators, measurement, and so on. Second trend is the Islamic finance is capitalizing more on the fintech industry, trying to reach out to a global digital world. And in my presentation, I have also mentioned some examples on that. The other trend is to move more from the form towards substance. Now it's taking other names, but the same discussion now is being reiterated that time has come for Islamic finance, Islamic economics to focus more on the substance more than the form. And there are other aspects in my presentation I will be sharing, inshallah.
Okay, can we have Professor Shem presentation? I think
Yes, I will make a presentation.
yes, I think that's
Open the presentation here.
we have Shem's presentation. Is it ready? Any presentations?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Dear participants, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the summit with this team.
Not yours.
No, this is...
Yeah,
Yusuf.
it is not my
Yunus.
presentation. It's the presentation
This is
of
yours.
Mr. Yunus.
They should
Yeah.
change it.
That's Professor.
If
Okay,
you can change.
no issue. Can you go ahead, please?
Okay,
It's okay.
That's right.
You can follow the order.
I think they
Fine.
will correct.
Sorry about that.
Then once you have the mic, you should keep it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will not get it.
Do not use the clicker.
No, okay. Now, Islamic world, now serious problems. So before my words, I respectfully salute innocent Palestinians who are currently resisting Israel operation. So, so we know now that the strength of Islamic world depends on many components. One of these components is economy. I congratulate the organizing committee for being aware of the importance of historical practice while focusing on this component. Because historical practice have not only left us a legacy, but they also give us about the practice that we can now use and make the structure the future. In this sense, I will touch upon the contribution of Ottomans with their original contribution with the cash works. Here is my presentation plan.
Yeah.
But I will be very fast to obey the time rule. You know, the meaning of the waqf in Arabic is to hold as in confident in the provision. And this term is used to describe the holding of certain property, goods, cash, and distributing their benefits, some philanthropic purpose in Islam. And it was thought that the first waqf was founded in the Quba Mosque in the Medina during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The establishment of waqfs is based on the hadith. When a person dies, he is cut off from his world and his actions come to an end, except for three things will continue to affect him after his death and which he leaves behind. Those are the continuous act of charity. It is the sadaqah jariyah, the waqfs, the knowledge, maybe a book or other ilm, and a dutiful child. So people has a motivation to build a waqf with this hadith. And we know the waqfs were very, very widespread during the Ottoman period, and they founded a lot of institutions that now modern states that service for their people. All these services ensure the Ottoman Empire is known as the waqf civilization. One of them was the cash waqfs, one of these types of waqf. Cash waqfs as a successful example of the unique outcome of the flexibility of Ottoman judiciary or Islamic law, were first practiced and generated and make it general in Ottoman Empire. In the archival records, we know that the first waqf was established by the Yağcı Hacı Müslihiddin in Edirne, and he devoted 10,000 akçes and some shops in the 1423. And the purpose of this waqf is pay 3 akçes, rest in Quran or other activities. So the administrative decisions and implemented practice depend on the Islamic principle of Ottomans. Therefore, an institution like cash waqfs was much discussed, and establishment, functioning, and methods of generating income of cash waqfs were questioned by the Islamic scholars in their times. And there are really debates to establish a cash waqf. And how they function? They aim to serve society and funded many institutions and services from religious to educational, infrastructure to health, and also had important role in the economic and financial life of society. Therefore, the waqfs are not considered as charitable foundations, but also institutions that allows the Ottomans stand up to capitalism. Because, you know, they are the neighbor of the Europe, the banking system or stock market or the insurance system is developing in Europe in that time, but Ottoman resist this issue until the half of the 19th century with their unique financial system. So the waqf system balanced and worked to ensure the fair equilibrium for society by setting up a method for income distribution. Moreover, they are primarily established to the needs of the local society. So their main purpose is social, then it comes to other issues. Their functions, here I ordered, preventing violations of individual property rights, protecting the funding, providing support, taxes during a crisis period, unity of land could otherwise divided through Islamic law of succession, pensions for old age and disability, primitive social security system, building infrastructure, and we know that there are a lot of Ottoman structures come to today with the thanks to the works. They also operated as microcredit institutions and giving entrepreneur cash for their needs in that time, because you know there is a really lack of money supply in that time. When we come, how they are partner of the nowadays interest-free financial institution, because they use interest-free financial methods when they are operating the money. We generated like 8 methods from the WACFIES. Here you can see the books that is a project that conducted by Professor Mehmet Bulut between the time of 2012 to 2017. We examined nearly 1,000 cash WACF in the established in Balkans. So we see 8 ways about that. Bey istilal, bida, purchase to rent, istibayet military court, mudarabe, murabaha, operation transaction of ministry ekfaf, and card. These methods are written in the WACFIES of this cash WACF. Here I choose some, for example, that shows that they are financing production and trade. You know, there are a lot of critics from some scholars that they only give cash to the consumers and they not finance the production and trade. But when we look at the condition that written in the cash WACF, there are certain issues like that only give the loan to the entrepreneur, to the merchants, to the tradesmen, like that. Do not give the cash to people that have a certain wage from the state or other issues. So it shows us that they focus on the financing, trade, and production. Here in the table, I try to summarize how they, the difference and the similarities between the cash WACFs and modern interest-free financial institutions. Because of time, I think you can already see that on the slides. Also, we make some basic principles from that cash WACFs. These four basic principles. Firstly, they use Islamic and ethical financial methods, so interest-free methods, while financing their borrowers. Second, they operating as a microcredit mechanism. They couldn't give big credits. They only focus on the small entrepreneurs, and they are focused on being regional institutions, so they don't have branch like modern banks, and they focusing on needs of the society. So it provides a localization for people, because you know the people who live some neighborhood know the problems well. So WACF was founded with these need-based issue. So they are also need-based and focusing on need of society. So end of my slides. The problems in the financial world arise due to the increasing and deepening the gap between the financial and real sector. So now there is a financial operation to real sector. As the capital of capital owners grows because of the interest-based system, the borrower, who is the real producers, becomes increasingly poor. The transfer mechanism of wealth that caused by the interest system is not fair. It is necessary to establish a system that will ensure that this transfer fair and ethical. So we are here for this. One of these institutions that will establish is the cash WACFs that embrace Islamic financial principles and do not have ambition of the over-profit. If the Islamic world is looking solution to its problems, then the solution is in history, and Islamic societies longing for their glorious past to make an in-depth analysis of the institutions and practice from their history. Those institutions will help the Islamic world to overcome the problem caused by the modern financial problems, modern financial system, and which are appropriate Islamic values must be restored to gain their former power.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting. More questions to be raised about the cash works and how cash work products can be redesigned, if you like, to the contemporary issues that we discussed earlier, like sustainable development goals. And talking about the sustainable development goals, I'm not sure. I think we've got to Professor Yunus' presentation is ready. I'm sorry, brother. So, yes, if you can make it a quick 5 to 6 minutes, please, brother. We're running out of time, I guess, and we still have Brother Mahmoud, yeah.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, can you click until you reach it? Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I don't know how to present 20 slides in 5 minutes. I will try to squeeze as much as possible.
7 minutes.
Basically, I was asked to talk on 4 important themes. One would be on the Islamic trajectory, or the trajectory of Islamic finance. Basically, these are the themes. The growth trajectory of Islamic finance, the role of Islamic finance in sustainable development, Sharia compliance in contemporary financial instruments, and financial trends, or future trends. Basically, I will go through, these are basic information that currently the Islamic finance asset stands at about $4.5 trillion with a year-to-year growth of 11%. Basically, total institutions very high. This slide is from the ICD, in which it summarizes the latest development of Islamic finance in terms of financial performance, governance, sustainability, awareness, and all these numbers show that there is a positive development and a positive growth at all levels, especially at the level of the product, the assets, as well as the regulations. Just skip. This slide simply summarizes the trajectory. So by 2027, we're expecting that the Islamic finance assets will reach about $6.6 trillion. So this simply shows that there is a sustainable growth of the Islamic finance assets. What's noticeable in this slide is that Turkey is taking some kind of a lead, whereby some agencies such as Moody's is expecting Turkey to take, looking at the growth of Turkey, that Turkey now is the fastest growing Islamic financing market. That pace is very much encouraging, and that shows that the Turkish government is taking serious steps towards the development of Islamic finance in this country. The same thing, the same report, the Moody's report, also expect that the issuance, especially in the Sukuk, will be shifting more towards Turkey, away from some GCC countries, because of the Turkish initiatives in the issuance of Sukuk. Therefore, we can simply say that the Islamic finance now is driven by a few important factors. The first one is the resilience against the economic trend, that Islamic finance, because it is based on profit and loss sharing, real assets, real economy, so is actually being sustained and protected generally from the financial crisis and economic crisis. It's not fully protected, but because it is dealing with the real economy, then it is in a very good position, in a very good place for being protected. The second driver is that some markets are now outperforming the conventional. So, for example, in Malaysia and others, so we can see the trend that Islamic banking and finance is actually outperforming the conventional. So this trend of outperforming is a good sign that Islamic finance is moving towards more development. On a specific area, which is the steady Sukuk issuance. Now, the Sukuk issuance is very obvious in many Islamic countries. And this shows that sovereign sukuk and corporate sukuk is becoming an alternative, a source of financing rather than conventional. So we have these drivers capitalizing on this alternative. The Islamic finance as an alternative is being actually capitalized by governments as well as corporates. As for the role of Islamic finance in sustainable development goals, this is a very big topic basically. It shows to what extent the Islamic finance now is being integrated in the value proposition of finance in general. So the international frameworks such as SDGs and other frameworks such as the ESG or even the global reporting initiatives, the GRI, and all this responsible investment framework that exists in the world, somehow they are talking now the same language as we talk. Language that Islamic finance is all about the values. And these values are no more than protecting the life of people, the environment, the wealth of people, the land on earth, the land below the sea. These are the same values. As I said in my introduction, despite this proximity that exists between maqasid and SDGs, we need to have our own version of SDG. We need to have our own version of ESG. And speaking of which, we at our institution, we are developing Islamic versions of ESG, Islamic version of SRI, socially responsible investment, and just in 2 days' time from now, we are launching the first ESG, Islamic-based ESG framework, only for the SMEs, because the SMEs have been neglected when it comes to ESG measurement and assessment. So we are developing the first of its kind. This is actually an ESG, Islamic-based ESG assessment for small and medium enterprises, the first in its world, and that's going to be launched in the GIF that's going to happen in Kuala Lumpur in 2 days' time. And speaking of this, we are not short of theory. We have a lot of theoretical framework that tries to integrate Islamic finance with ESG and SDGs generally. And what you see in this slide is a general approximation between maqasid al-sharia and SDG. But what we are in need of exactly is the thrusts, the indicators, and the measurement. So there are two things that we need. One is to come up with our own version of ESG. And secondly, what are the right indicators we have to think about? So if the United Nations has put all these 290 or so of indicators, would that be globalized? Is that something that we have to adhere to generally? Do we need to have some kind of an adjustment to those indicators? If they are talking about how many, for example, in governance, how many women should be in the board of directors, would that be something of concern to us? If they are talking about human rights, what is their perception of human rights? Is this what we are perceiving ourselves? I think all these SDGs and ESGs have been put to test recently, and I think everyone sees that there is a failure in adhering to the SDG and the ESG in many aspects. That's why we have to take that not for granted, but for giving our output, our input of what is an Islamic ESG and what is an Islamic SDG should be.
Can I just take this point here and suggest something? I think it is for the role of the standard-setting bodies like the WAFI, IFSB, IFM to give more guidance as how we can measure this, how we can develop the ESGs that's more relevant. For the interest of time, brother, can I just stop here unless you have 1 or 2 minutes to conclude?
Yes.
I need to bring Professor Ahmed as well. So do you want to have?
Yeah, actually, I just want to highlight 1 or 2 points before these 2 minutes. One on the, of course, these are all the initiatives of the Islamic sustainability initiatives. There are many initiatives that has been done at the level of the, for example, this is the Malaysian model, where Malaysia has developed many Islamic sustainability framework, product, procedures, one of which would be the VBI, VBIT, the green sukuk, and so on. And the latest one is the carbon exchange, the carbon credit exchange, which was launched last year, the first of its kind in the world to trade the carbon credit based on the Islamic principles. And lastly would be on the governance. I was asked actually to talk about the Sharia compliance. This is now looking at the standard setters such as IOP and others. They have come up with more Sharia standards and exposure draft to strengthen the Sharia governance, to strengthen the Sharia compliance. I mean, if you look into this Sharia decision making and the Sharia governance, they have been revised, enhanced, and there is a zoom. They are zooming more on the certain areas such as Sharia decision making. And that shows that Sharia compliance is of paramount importance. And lastly, I mean, for the Sharia compliance Islamic finance product, we are now at the stage of two things. One is to focus more on the substance rather than the form. And this has been initiated by, I mean, this has been emphasized by standard setters such as IOP and others, and by the Malaysian government, for instance, Malaysian regulators, who are now looking more towards a more substantive product. That's why one of the development that is happening, that the Malaysian regulator are reviewing the tawarruq. To them, they want to find an alternative to tawarruq, even though tawarruq has been the core product. So this shows that there is a revision of the product, the concept, and the procedures. Lastly, the future trends, I would say, there are three important trends. One, Islamic finance is moving more towards the fintech era, whereby we are witnessing more Islamic crowdfunding companies, blockchain-based product, and more Islamic digital banks. Islamic banks, secondly, Islamic banks will outpace the sector growth, so we are anticipating that Islamic bank will perform better and even outpace. And we're even witnessing a merger and acquisition, such as Kuwait Finance House. They are acquiring more more other banks. And lastly, the other trend, that there is a strong demand for Islamic banking conventional banks. I mean, many conventional banks, now they want to convert into Islamic. The last trend is that central banks themselves are introducing tools, especially in the Islamic interbank money market, developing more regulations and more products. Lastly, in Algeria, this is the last example I want to show, that the regulators are developing for the first time the Islamic money market, and about 11 regulations that enhance the Islamic finance, which means the central banks are moving more towards enhancing the regulation in Islamic finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think both presentations will be available, hopefully, inshallah, in the right website. Before I just move to the floor, I just wanted to bring Professor Ahmed a couple of points about your perspective of the millennium of Islamic economics. And you have shared some interesting points here. Sorry that the presentation is not, but do you want to just to summarize a couple of points, please?
Let me summarize a couple of points. First of all, as you see, right now we are discussing about the ESG, sustainability, even in bringing certain things from the history, and we are bringing it to today. One of the achievements of Islamic finance is that Islamic finance brings the Muslims from the metaverse to the present world, to the reality, especially in the last 20, 40 years. That is the biggest achievement. In the past, if you have this sort of gatherings, it was more about the theory, what Islam can do, not actually doing. But right now, as you see in the presentation, Islamic finance, Islamic economy is something real. This is one. And the second one, now we are speaking the language of the universe, or language of the global world, where we discuss the ESG, sustainability, we are trying to align. This is a big achievement, one way or another. This is the full part of the glass that I was trying to mention. Because you cannot be always in the metaverse. You cannot be always in reality also. You cannot justify everything on as a means of reality. Right now, that's why I said that Islamic finance and economy came to a plateau. Right now, we have to rethink about it, because we get too much into the reality. Sometimes it is good to go back to the metaverse and rethink. So That's why Islamic finance started with an economic thought, with the ideas. And there's a famous saying by Keynes, at the end of the day, the ideas win over the realities. You first think and then you go. This is quite a romantic approach of German romanticism, probably, but one minute it's true. Right now, the Muslim world has to rethink because the challenges are big. Challenges are not anymore national challenges. Even we know that Islamic finance is a product of some national interest, right? That's why it came out first in Pakistan, Malaysia sort of countries. It was part of a national identity. Right now, as the Islamic finance grow, when you start selling your sukuk throughout the world, when even the Americans, some Christians, some non-believers start buying your sukuk, it becomes a global phenomenon. It becomes a global issue, which is great for the Muslims, because Muslim needs that. But it is contrary to how it started, right? It started like more for the Muslims. It was a self-identity. You differentiate yourself from the Indians or from the non-Muslims. You differentiate yourself from the Chinese in Malaysia. And similarly in Turkey, you distinguish yourself from the more secular people in Turkey. But right now, we need more of a universal approach. And in that universal approach, Islamic finance is actually provide a great opportunity for the other fields of Islamic movement in social parts, in political parts. And also, we have to be quite self-confident in that respect, because really, when we go back to 30, 40 years ago, I agree with Dr. Yunus, actually. I have been saying this for a while. There is an Islamic finance before sustainable finance. There is an Islamic finance before responsible finance. There is Islamic finance before ESGs. There is Islamic finance before sustainable finance. Because many of the ideas that has been mentioned right now by the mainstream economics in the name of sustainability has been actually mentioned much earlier by the Islamic finance people. So that's why we have to be self-confident in that regard. Islamic finance has produced lots of theories and implemented very good practices, but we shouldn't be just delivering this message, delivering this ideas to the Muslims because of some identity-related issues. Now it is the time to give this universal message, and it is really the right time. Because when you look at all the social sciences, they are in a kind of a crisis. They are they are in a search of meaning. All this sustainability discussion, imagine, they are when we start talking about the values means meaning. But Islamic finance from the very beginning started with the meaning. So yes. Islamic finance doesn't need the meaning, but Islamic finance needs a direction. And in that direction, there is also one argument that I have been doing for a while. Islamic finance started from the top down. It was the Islamists, some political thinkers, some of the policymakers, they said, okay, let's do the things in an Islamic way, because we are in Pakistan, we have been separated, or we are in Malaysia, so it was more of a top-down approach. But right now, Islamic finance is not just, Dr. Aitam, you don't have any chance. I have been professor for a while, so.
Okay, no, I know. Yes, if
I
if
never
we leave
stop.
it for
I have such a capacity.
No, but this is very passionate, and I think I like the way that you are talking about how Islamic finance and the point that you mentioned top to down. But I think we needed to replicate this for Islamic economics. Islamic finance has a courage of regulator support, of Islamic bankers support, pioneers like Sheikh Saleh Al-Kamil, may Allah bless him, and all others. So they have taken this courage and this leadership to make Islamic finance 4 trillion. Okay, we need to see Islamic economics. But at this point, I need to bring the floor. If anyone has any comment or any question to our esteemed, distinguished panelist, please make it concise, quick, one-sentence question. Yes, I can see somebody here. If you stand up, if no microphone, just speak loudly.
Other person
Sorry, the one who has the mic, please. Sorry. We come back to you.
Yeah, apologies. So my name is Mohamed Abdou. I'm a lecturer at Sciences Po Paris. And the question that I would have to the panelists, a lot has been discussed about the economic realities and the improvement that could be done to the approach taken. From an institutional point of view, what institution could be put in place, or if it is already existing, could take on those initiatives. How we could, because we have a lot of nice ideas about how Islamic finance could improve and develop. But in order to put this into practice and implement it, we need institutions. I mean, banks could already take initiatives on the private sector, but when talking about the top-down approach, which institution in your mind could either be existing and take on those initiatives, or could be created and
Sure. I think message is understood. Thank you.
So-
I'll just give
Thank you very
one more. But obviously, we have the Islamic Development Bank and 7 other institutions. We have the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. This is our core market. And obviously, I'll leave others to comment on that. Any other question, please?
Sure.
Yes, this young man. Okay. Can you stand up?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the discussion. And from an applicable point of view, Dr. Hatem has mentioned the food industry, the halal food industry, and participation banks and insurance. Usually, from a customer point of view, which is one of the stakeholders for the Islamic finance ecosystem, I have just a simple question. Why the price of having a halal product is to pay more cost? Usually, halal restaurants are double the price of regular restaurants in Europe. Insurance companies are charging, for example, 3 to 4 times multiple, which I've recently experienced it. Islamic banks are giving less profit margin, or so-called profit margin, in compared with...
So you're talking about cost. Why the cost is more?
No, I'm not asking why the cost of more is more, because usually if we are talking about attracting others or introducing Islamic finance to the world, as Dr. Ahmed has mentioned, usually we find 2 extremes. Some person who will stick to Islamic products, and the other who doesn't care. But the vast majority of people will usually work with people who give more benefit. So how can we attract, as Islamic finance institutions or businesses, or let's say startups, how can we develop the concept of being more profitable and less costly? This is my question, simply.
Economies of scale. One more question, please. Yes.
Yes, sir. I have the mic.
Who's the
Here.
the mic?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Fadal.
Can you check on your left?
I see. Yes, yes.
Right, sure. Can I?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. We thank the organizers of this wonderful conference. To be precise, my question goes to Dr. Yunus Sohaili. He made mention of Malaysia trying to be more focused on substance than forms. As someone who didn't live in Malaysia, by the way, I'm a PhD candidate at Ibn Khaldun University. I used to hear that in Malaysia, there are a lot of financial products that has only forms, a kind of challenging to the Sharia compliance of at least what I study. So I would like to know, what does Dr. Yunus mean in his statement that Malaysia is trying to focus on more on substance than forms? Especially, he made mention of tawarruk as an example. Is it that they realize that many of these financial products were just based on structure, not in compliance with Sharia, or something else? Thank you, sir.
Sure, thank you so much. Dr. Ahmed, can we answer? You've been rising many times. Please, Fadal. Yes.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
طارق القصبي رئيس مجلس إدارة بنك الجزيرة في السعودية. We have the experience of transforming the bank from conventional bank to fully Islamic bank, alhamdulillah. And that was a very tough transformation. But and the result was very good. We have, alhamdulillah, the business grow, the profitability is better, and we are competing with the conventional banks in the Saudi market, and we did not have a problem in competing with them. Now we reached what Dr. Ahmed said. We reached the plateau of product. We are not able to introduce more. Even we have asset management, fully Islamic, we have takaful, we have the commercial bank, but still we need a breakthrough in new products. So we hope that we can come up with some idea which bring up new products to the market. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Mohammed, just the first question. More institutions.
Very quickly on institutions, right now, that is the main point that I was trying to make actually. Over the last 50 years, Islamic finance and economy is not just about the thought, it is practice. Because AlBaraka is one of them, Sheikh Kamil, Ali Kamil is actually one of the frontiers, even established Islamic finance institutions in different countries, not necessarily for profit, but just to introduce Islamic finance to these countries. This doesn't have to be through IDB or from, this is my point actually. Institutions, there are different forms of institutions. I work, it was part of my PhD, and I'm very fond of the literature. There are also even softer institutions. Even by coming together, we are forming an institution. And inshallah, this will be continued, even how we integrate with the rest of the world. Right now, our Islamic finance friends, they are now attending the IMF World Bank meetings. They are having presence in the BIS, IFSP, other places. This is also institutions. How we behave is even an institution. So in that sense, there's a big improvement. We have already official institutions. But my point is that also, right now, we have also more of a bottom-up approach where even an individual living in US, for example, there's no really strong government support for Islamic finance in US. But they can still find solutions through fintech. They can have some solutions which does not require the state or any sort of regulation, but still they can live as Muslims. Because at the end of the day, Islamic finance and economy is there, not as a kind of an objective. It is there to serve us. We Muslims want to live like Muslims, but this cost of, the second question, cost of living as Muslims should be lower. Right?
Sure, yeah.
So, and that's why Islamic financial institutions have the responsibility to cater this. And now, I believe with this top-down approach has already succeeded, and it will continue. But we need more of a bottom-up approach where we benefit from the technology and other things, and this will all form this ecosystem. And at the end of the day, this ecosystem will make us live more like Muslims. And our children, our generations will, inshallah, will live as Muslims, and their life will be easier, which is related with the second question. There is certainly an Islamic premium. Do you think that to be a Muslim is a cheap thing? So that there has to be some sort of a premium, which is because in the Islamic finance products, you are not just betting for the price, right? It is also the values. It's a combined product. That's why, I mean, we should be ready for Islamic premium, but our purpose as people living in, working on Islamic finance is to reduce this premium, such that the Muslims will live as they want to live, inshallah.
I was told that I think, coming to the close of our session time. I'm sorry, there's some interesting questions, and I can see. But Professor Ahmed, I wanted you, if you don't mind, just in 2 minutes, answer the questions about cost, halal food, and all this. And maybe Dr. Yunus, you can take it offline.
Okay, thank you so much. We really need to understand that today, just Islamic finance is, a very, specific area in global issues and in Islamic economics area. So the cost of issue, we have to take into consideration that from individual level to institution and to state level, there are so many things that we need to improve today. From individual level, the entrepreneurship of the climate for our youth, and we as on institutional level to encourage this sector. So Islamic finance, banking, to lower cost. Of course, you need the resource. If your resources are, rich, then that means the cost will down. But again, human resources are the most important rather than the financial, capital or physical capital. Human capital is the most important. And for this issue, for Islamic finance and economics, we need to, increase the human capital in all levels. And we have to think that Islamic economics and finance is not just for the Muslims.
Yes.
It's a natural economy and financial. It's all humanity needs. It's a human economic and financial model. We have to encourage all the individuals, institutions, and all the states in global area to,
Absolutely. I think that's a good thing to conclude with these good remarks from Professor Ahmed. Thank you so much, all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much.